All right, the first question is if I can get your first and last name and spell them both out for me.
Stephen Stearns, Stephansterns.
All right, so Stephen, you seem very emotional right now. Explain to us.
I dropped her off. Everything looked fine when I drove away. It's the last time we saw her.
What were the conversations that y'all had in the car when you dropped her off?
Not much. She was asleep for most of the way. Told her have a good day at school when she got out. I love her. She said thanks, love you too. That was it.
And so where do you think she could possibly be? I mean, this isn't, as I was told, this isn't normal behavior.
It's not normal behavior. She's not the type that would just run off. We don't know where she can be. We're scared. We just want her home.
Are you, in a sense, blaming yourself?
It's hard not to.
Why?
I dropped her off early. I could have waited longer. She looked okay. She was walking towards the school when I saw her. It was like any other day, so I went on with my day. It's hard not to blame myself.
Chase, what do you got?
So you'll notice his tone here. Maybe Scott will include a special rendition of this that he was doing off camera here a second ago in our final clip. It's one of finality, though. It's finality. Even his language, if you listen closely, it's all about things being over and done with. He makes an appeal for her to come home, but it carries the same. Listen to this when it comes back on. His appeal for her to come home has the exact same emotional weight as you see and hear when he's spelling his name for the camera. When I see this, there's always something wrong. Every time. Always. So the question was ambiguous and open from the reporter. And Stephen, I think is his name, could have said anything that he wanted to. When someone's in the situation and they have the floor and they default to the story of what happened from the beginning, which is potentially a story they made up for the police, this is one of the top 3 red flags you could ever see. The number one concern is the story which explains his innocence and not her disappearance or her return or her being found. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So emotions are expensive. They take up a lot of oxygen to get them going. There's a lot of respiration involved in emotions. In order to get that kind of action in his eyes and that kind of tonality, not quite being able to get his words out, it would take a lot of oxygen and carbon dioxide, a lot of respiration to get that going. His breathing rate is not up at the right level. Just immediately, the breathing does not fit a heightened emotion of any sort whatsoever. So it can't be a real emotion because they're expensive and he's not taking in enough oxygen and expelling enough carbon dioxide to support any kind of heightened emotion. So straight off the bat, I go, well, that's made up. He's making that up. He's acting that right now and not well enough. Not well enough for me not to be able to see it. She was asleep most of the way, he says. I mean, I think that's odd behavior for a child. I've kids that are ill, will fall in them often, kids ill, just got in the car and they're asleep. Like they're not, they don't want to go to school. They're making out that they're ill or they're ill. And that's why they're asleep. Or maybe the journey's a 3-hour journey, and they get up at 4 o'clock in the morning in order to make it that's a possibility. But from the description, it seemed to be a short journey. It just struck me as odd. The kid was asleep most of the way. I don't understand that. I'm not feeling his feeling because the breathing isn't enough. So he's got no empathy from me. And in this situation, if it were real, I should be empathetic. Even me, I would feel it, and I'm not feeling it at all. So again, another reason why, on an emotional level, rather than just the intellectual level, that the breathing isn't right. On the emotional level, my empathy and my theory of mind isn't firing off. So there's stuff missing, definitely missing from there. And then he says, it's hard not to blame myself. So he's focused on himself, whereas he should be focused on her. It should be nothing about him and blame for him. He should be focused on the search right now. It's all wrong. It's all Pete Tong. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I thought he was going to break into a Bee Gees song with that tone of voice, that little falsetto cry that he does. I'm just like, look, everybody knows that when you cry, you're indifferent to what people think of you. Real crying, you're snot-nosed, snotty-eyed. You don't care. I mean, if you ever see me cry, I won't care what you think. It's just the way life is. He's not. He's a bad actor I always call it going down the well to get emotion. What real people do when they're feeling emotion is they choke it back. They contain it. They don't embrace it and try to go into it and lean into it. And he's leaning into it, Mark. I mean, if you were coaching this guy, you'd say, the hell are you doing? That's not acting. So if you watch this guy, he's going down the well, he's finding something, and he's probably finding something to go down the well over, looking down into his right, recalling something that makes him feel emotion so he can pull up something. And even then he can't. It's really bad. His respiration, everything about it is bad. Chase, I'll give you another bad marker that I feel like there might be some collusion. When the bird interrupted her story, she started her story over because it's important I get the facts out. People don't do that when their kid's missing. They go, just get my kid home. I'll tell you all that later. How we got to here is a different story. But they do. They start, and it's like we were just saying, when we capture prisoners, there's things we call 5S, and one of those is separate. And the reason we want to do that is because I don't want Chase and Mark talking, because then I can't tell whose story is whose. And we separate those guys. It's separate, speed, silence, safety. Yeah. I know you're doing the same thing, right?
And segregate.
Yeah. So segregate is about moving them apart so that you get the chance to be able to talk to the person and get their story. And these people are both stories that start over right at the beginning when they get interrupted. That ain't a good sign, number one. He's got deep breath and emotionally eye accessing, probably trying to get that. But then he does this thing. Go watch me when we're talking to Tarek. That's not lip compression. That is disdain and disapproval and condemning all day. He does that almost every time he says something about this little girl. And you can't see it as much because of facial hair, but pay attention. He does that lip compression and he does a head nod or head shake. I don't think that is the confirming thing. And Scott, you're going to talk about in a minute. We'll say this is a counter shake. He's saying this when he's saying yes. Something is wrong. All this together creates a cluster. We saw her. He's back to the pronoun again, sharing those pronouns. And then when he's asked not much, she was asleep, his head shaking and lack of eye contact are bad sign. When he raises his eyes to make contact is something key to his story, is the only time he's going to do it. When you ask him a point, he'll do the other. And then when finally they ask him a question and he starts to do this, he entirely loses the whole head shaking or nodding. That was it. He goes, no, shakes his head like this. What the hell does that mean exactly? And you want to know. And then a single shoulder shrug as he says, not normal. Every word that he wants you to hear is punctuated with eye lock or romancer, as Scott and I would call it in the True Crime Workshop, but it's locking eyes. We just want her home. There's, again, a head nod, lip compression, and disdain. This guy right out the gate, you look at him and you go, boom, there's that. This guy has got nothing positive in it. He looks like he's storytelling. He's using that, again, team pronouns. So let's pay attention to him. Scott, what do you got?
Every woman watching this within the first 7 seconds went, he did it. Something's not right here. You got that feeling that told you something wasn't right, because even in that short little window of time, you picked up a lot of things. When that voice he's doing, that when he's talking really like something's wrong, that's coming from the diaphragm. It's not coming from constricted larynx. That's not what's happening there. It's not that constriction that makes your voice go up. I know this because having sang background vocals for years and years, and literally we would do 50 of the
Were you in the Bee Gees?
low part. Yeah, I was in the Bee Gees. 50 of the low part, 50 of the mids, 50 of the highs, and then 50 of the, and these make these huge gang background vocals. That's how you do it. And that's what I would do every time. That's what everybody I know would do every time. And I know what that sounds like. And that's what he's doing. So that's fake. That is the worst I've ever heard somebody try to fake being sad. Is that's so bad. Right out of the gate, this whole thing is just full of odd behavior. So let's, like you were saying, let's pay attention to how many times we shows up in here. He says we dropped her off. Although the last time we saw her. So that tells me, I think that mom might have been with him during all this. And Mark, the point about the sleeping that you were talking about, what they found out was that he had her in the car after she wasn't alive anymore, and had it looking like had her sitting up in the car driving her as he was going, and they have video of that. That's why he said she was asleep most of the time. So, and I just happened to watch a video about that. I was like, oh, that's more on that kid. Right. So that's what he's talking about. You didn't have that info, so you didn't know. But that's a good call, because why would she be asleep at that point? Then he says nothing. It was like it was an ordinary day. Everything else was normal. He didn't say except for it's not normal, because she wanted to be let off in a church parking lot. I understand how sometimes kids want to have their parents let them off when they're down at the end of the sidewalk as they walk up. That's cool. But being let off in a church parking lot way back there, remember when the mother said they couldn't tell if it was her or not because of the grainy video at the church? But then she said that was her. They could see her in the parking lot there, and she wandered off. That wasn't her. Obviously, it wasn't her. So these two have been talking about this. They're in collusion. She knows what's up. She knows what's happened here. She knows exactly what's happened here. That's why we're seeing all the fear and terror on her face. And he's doing this real quiet thing. This guy doesn't even move much. And the expressions we're seeing, that's not sadness, man, at all. He's trying to fake sadness. We don't see anything that shows, of course, he's got a beard, but you can see through those things. You can see the movements in there. We're not seeing those things we should be seeing, like you guys were talking about earlier. You can see the mouth move in there. You can see what's going on with the mouth, even though he has a beard. There are things that are going to show you that. These two are working together. These two, and it may not be out yet. So fellas and ladies, if you're watching this and you're working that case, heads up. Something's up here. I hope we're not letting this out of the bag so she starts protecting herself. But I don't think at this case, that guy's probably going to tell on her anyway. He's probably going to, I would say. So something's up here. I think they're colluding. I really do. Of course, this is just my opinion. It may not be true, and it may not be valid and all that. It's just an opinion. So there you have that. Oh, and the part about where he does it, it's hard not to feel guilty. It's hard not to feel guilty because, oh my God, you guys, am I on mute? No? What's so funny?
No, we'd all done the lean in.
Yeah, you ruined our lean in.
No, my best lean in ever. Another thing. And another
I thought you guys were, I thought I was muted. And you guys were laughing.
My dismount was beautiful.
Oh, dude. I'll rewatch it, and here's what I'll do. I'll go back through and I'll choose a winner on this when I review it when I'm editing. Okay?
All right.
I promise you that's what I'll do. Sorry.
He knew I knew.
All right, the first question is if I can get your first and last name and spell them both out for me.
Stephen Stearns, STEPHAN,
All right, so Stephen, you seem very emotional right now. Explain to us.
I dropped her off. Everything looked fine when I drove away. It's the last time we saw her.
What were the conversations that y'all had in the car when you dropped her off?
Not much. She was asleep for most of the way. Told her have a good day at school when she got out. I love her. She said thanks, love you too. That was it.
And so where do you think she could possibly be? I mean, this isn't, as I was told, this isn't normal behavior.
It is not normal behavior. She's not the type that would just run off. We don't know where she can be. We're scared. We just want her home.
Are you, in a sense, blaming yourself?
It's hard not to.
Why?
I dropped her off early. I could have waited longer. She looked okay. She was walking towards the school when I saw her. It was like any other day, so I went on with my day. It's hard not to blame myself.
If you like this video, get the full body language breakdown and analysis on our main channel by clicking this video right here.